Steve, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thanks for having me.
No, it's fantastic to see you again. I think the last time we spoke, I was in Australia visiting our customers there, and we were talking at the time about really the emergence of large language models. So this is, I mean, almost a year and a half ago now, when we were at that point in time sort of seeing what might become of this. Is it a flash in the pan? Is it something that has staying power? Is it just hype? And man, what a 12 to 18 months it's been, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, it's almost 2 years ago when everything just started boiling, and everybody was too excited, and we were trying to identify opportunities and give people a little bit better understanding of how they can leverage this. But now, almost 2 years after, things are much more different.
Yeah, and at the time you were kicking off your community, you were really getting things going. Tell me a little bit about how that's gone. I know GenAI.works has now become this incredible learning community for everything from executive education to hands-on. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of the year and the movement that you seem to be igniting, supporting, part of.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, last time we had to catch up in Sydney. Now you got me while in Abu Dhabi, meeting some of the partners, clients. I had great meetings with some governments in the GCC region. Literally yesterday, I had a great meeting in Riyadh, and I'm going to fly to Hong Kong next week for Alibaba conference. So it's very exciting time. A lot of great events and great projects are going forward. We can see the real value that being driven using these sort of LLMs and AI that we kind of started talking about it 2 years ago. It's coming to fruition. We talk about it in our discussion as well, but about Gen AI work. So thank you very much for helping us joining the team, delivering one of the courses for our audience. So we started as a community focus on generative AI, trying to educate people, giving them access to interesting projects and AI tools that were coming from everywhere. Honestly, we were trying to distill and curate things. And the community definitely started to support us, started to see the value. Now we have around 10 million subscribers and followers across different platforms, and we're excited to announce new um, projects like the executive AI course that you mentioned.
That's tremendously exciting. And I mean, Abu Dhabi today, Hong Kong next week. I think something that strikes me about, if people always want to know, hey, you're in the middle of this, what's different? And a lot of the news is dominated by, of course, Silicon Valley or the specific model providers, whether it's Mistral, in France, but, more recently, DeepSeek out of China, et cetera. How do you see this? It's sort of, at least from my perspective, this is one of the first truly simultaneous global movements where we see true technical innovation in a really open science setting that is happening globally. What's your perspective on that? How do you see this emerging? This isn't dominated by Silicon Valley at all. It doesn't seem. It seems like maybe the spark was lit from decades of research globally, and now we're seeing the growth also globally. Do you see the same thing?
100% agree. Like this is probably the time that the access to the knowledge and also the sort of infrastructure has been more and more democratized across the world. So a lot of countries are kind of in a similar level. And if you think about other technologies, like you could see like countries that are 20 years uh, behind or like 30 years behind, or maybe like there would be two leaders and the rest are just leveraging whatever they can get from these leaders. But with this particular technology and this particular I guess moment, you're seeing that almost all of the countries are very close to each other, and the conversation is about a year, 2 or 3 years maximum. Like the difference between the best chipset that is being produced by Nvidia, that is making Nvidia probably one of the most, I guess, important and valuable companies in the world, to other chipset providers are like maybe 2 or 3 years, maximum 4 years. And in the software and LLM space, this is even much more closer. This is a very interesting race, but also cooperation and collaboration happening across the board with with countries, because they can see the result is going to change the way that you're living, and it's going to have a huge positive impact in the economy, in the abundance of welfare and resources. So it is very exciting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I feel like, Friedman wrote The World is Flat, gosh, over a decade ago. But I think he was really seeing what we're living now, which is that, with the first the hardware expansion and the global fiber network, and then next the move to cloud and the slow build out of points of presence globally, where you start to see compute parity, compute and service parity availability, and then just the continued investment every country has been making over the last 2 decades in higher education, particularly in the STEM fields. We see this, I feel like a lot of what isn't talked about is the human dimension of this, where it's a convergence of decades of physical investment, decades of human investment in terms of education and continuous research that is igniting. I mean, speaking for our part, with the work that we're doing in generative integration, we have teams that are distributed across the Americas, Europe. Some of our strongest AI teams are in Thailand, India, of course, colleagues also in Australia, and it truly is, the availability of talent, as constrained as it is, and as much as we talk about how challenging it is to find the talent, it really feels like even in the last 18 months, the global talent pool has simultaneously up leveled to really dig in on this. And I think that's unique, at least in my 27-year career in this space, and focusing on developing these things. You've been at the forefront of AI development for many years, and staying close to the science and the evolution. From your perspective, as it pertains to the enterprise space, as it pertains to the business world, how do you see AI and agentic AI, in particular AI agents? How do you see that now impacting the digital transformation work that has been going on globally as well with governments and enterprises?
Yeah, that is actually a very interesting and visible shift that is happening. Essentially, um, the AI was already impactful in many cases in many industries, and we have seen the use cases that are delivering huge value. But the AI agents are kind of impacting the whole strategy and digital transformation conversation in a different way. Now we are seeing more of the companies and even governments to be more conscious of the impact, and also what can go wrong and what we need to be aware of, the speed, and also at the same time the value. And this is very important to understand that we are still in the baby phase of AI agents. We are still seeing a lot of new development coming. So what we are seeing is just the exploration of these opportunities, but at the same time, in a strong desire to be part of it, to implement it, and to be in the first cohort to leverage it. Because everybody knows that with this speed of change, the difference between companies, countries, and nations uh, going to be like maybe 1 or 2 years in terms of leveraging and adopting. And just that small gap is going to mean a lot in terms of the value. So AI first strategies are coming out. AI native architectures are coming out of the discussions, and these are all showing how strong is the desire among decision makers.
It's interesting you say that. Earlier this week, I was on site with one of our customers, one of the world's leading software as a service companies, and it's the first time I've heard a vice president in the IT department describe themselves as an AI first company. I've heard cloud first. I've heard the mobile first. I hadn't heard AI first as a strategy yet, and so and it was spoken not like a special thing to say either. It was like, of course we are. And so the way that we're talking about this often is as we think about the way that companies operate. We've recently over the last 5 years had to talk about sort of on-site or office-based work and remote work. Now, if you have that sort of on-site labor, remote labor, now it feels like we have digital labor coming in as well with agents. How are the folks that you're speaking with from a government perspective, from an employer perspective, thinking about that mix between sort of local, remote, and digital? Are they starting to think about it that way as they think about it's almost like a strategic workforce planning question in a way. I mean, at least from my perspective, but how are you seeing that evolve in the community?
That's a great point, Jeremiah. I think I'm seeing kind of the similar conversations about the workforce as well. Like everybody wants to be smart about leveraging the highest talents and to make sure that they can first of all upskill and reskill the current talents that they have around, but at the same time they want to access the best wherever they are, however they can be accessed, because the talents at this point are one of the rarest commodities. Like this is not something that as it, it was in every era. Like you would have specific skills that are going to be very in demand, and in this case, talents are across the world decentralized in a way. But then we don't have enough of them. So there is a bit of race to get access to the top talents, and you would see some of the top AI companies trying to be smart about it, and the governments are trying to be conscious of how they can push forward their agenda in the short and long term.
And do you see, I mean, so maybe, just taking a pause, this is Agent Fest. We're talking about agents. I have a very clear picture in my mind of what I think of, but how do you define an agent, and how, do the individuals you're speaking with, both in government and industry, define an agent, and how do they look at it? And then based on that, I guess the follow-on question is, how does that impact the way that they think about introduction of agents into their workforce and any sort of policy or ethical dimensions that might meet? But maybe we start with, what is this evolving definition of what is an agent, and how is your global 10 million strong community thinking about it?
That's a great point because actually back then, like 8 9 years ago, when I started sharing about AI on social media, I had these great chance of having some followers and connections that will come under my post saying that there's no AI, there's no such thing as AI. And for a very long time, they were very persistent that there is no such thing as AI. They don't write this anymore. But essentially, what they meant was like they had a perception of what AI means that was not available back then. And so that's that ambiguity of what AI means just made them to be bold about their own perceptions. Agents are even worse. Like, we do not have a proper understanding of agents across the board. A lot of times I hear agents equal to AI, sometimes equal to workflows, sometimes equal to automation. So these are like all going on at the same time. We are trying to understand how can we, uh, you know, how can we agree on these terminologies. I think one of them, maybe the one that I'm sort of going to share with you, is essentially an an autonomous AI system that can, understand the environment and can act on their decisions. I think that would be sort of part of uh, what one of the ways to put it together in a short sentence. But essentially, we're talking about um, an AI system that has autonomy. That's very important to understand that that piece needs to be there, at least for a major part of it. Like, they should have the autonomy to take actions. Otherwise, it would have been the same AI that we have had access to for a very long time, that is able to process data and give you some sort of results. Also, agents are able to understand their environment without a proper sort of prescription. They're able to adapt and explore it. It's thinking about, like, when I think about agents, I sometimes think about these and, game plays where you're playing against another sort of AI player, and they're able to explore, they're able to take action within the game. And that just gives me sense of visualized understanding of what agent might be. But as I said, this is exactly something that we need to decide, and um, we need to have more conversations about. I guess one of the biggest one is the AGI, which I'm not going to even start talking about.
No, it's interesting. I particularly like there was a paper that OpenAI published, I think, about a year ago now, titled Practices for Governing Agentic AI Systems. And their definition, I think, is very much in line with what you're saying, that their definition is, agentic AI systems are characterized by the ability to take actions which consistently contribute towards achieving goals over an extended period of time without their behavior having been specified in advance. I think that's a very nice single sentence description
That
of
was the
what an
best.
agent is. Yeah, it's really well written. Kudos to the authors on that, and that's really what we're seeing in implementation. So as we're seeing agents now, we have referenceable customers, independent bank, others who now have a full agentic systems. It very much is a system that is characterized by a goal, boundary conditions, and tools that can autonomously determine its own control flow. And that's a very exciting thing, because it really changes the programming paradigm and really puts the onus much more on what, how, and what are the guardrails around it. And then allow this iterative approach where the agent, as you say, can access information about the environment as specified by the boundary conditions that it's provided, and it can determine its own control flow. And that very simple, tight definition is it's like anything. If you have a very clean, simple, granular way to build these things with a good governing structure, you can do amazing things. How do you see I don't know, ethical guidelines or responsible governance evolving as we start to see this digital autonomy or digital labor start to emerge?
No, that's a great point, because I was going to go through this. These are very important discussions. As you mentioned, these agents are going to take actions. They're going to make decisions, and you know, every decision basically going wrong will have consequences. So that is the reality of the situation, and everybody is aware of that. So the conversations are shifting in some of the terminologies are shifting. We had a lot of talks about explainability in AI before. With deep learning, it kind of became more and more difficult and kind of got a little bit sidelines because essentially it's going to be as difficult as um, opening up the deep neural network to understand exactly how things happen. With agentic AI and AI agents, AI agents, we are seeing more of transparency and AI transparency, where you need to understand how the decision is made, but you cannot go to very granular level. As long as you can understand the chain of thoughts and sort of reasonings, it will give you some track of where it might have gone wrong. So from explainability more towards transparency, human in the loop was very important discussion and still part of it. We are trying to keep human in the loop, but then mostly with the automation, with the speed of AI agents, humans kind of changing the position to become on the loop, which essentially means that they are going to be used and referred to when AI understands that cannot actually deliver the task or cannot make the final decision, and based on confidence level they would reach out to human as a tiebreaker or final decision maker. And finally, the governance is also, as you know, uh, we we talked about. It's one of the most important conversations to have a reliable, responsible governance framework, but then we are also thinking about how we can leverage AI to have more adaptive governance. These are sort of the major areas that we're talking about. But then also big companies are gigantic companies and Fortune 100s are all trying to be transparent about what they are thinking and share their frameworks because they believe that it will help the ecosystem and also will bring more credibility to what they're doing.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what is really interesting is we look and compare between explainability in the deep learning world versus governance and auditability in the AI agent world. That to me has also been a very, I think, positive surprise that governance and transparency for AI agents is actually easier than explainability in the neural network. And what's most interesting to me is that the ability to provide governance for the design or the cognitive architecture of an agent is relatively straightforward by having the system be able to define and document the boundary conditions, which are really the system prompts, et cetera, that make up the system. But even more excitingly, that the chain of thought, as you put it, or the actual control flow as the agent operates is inspectable, and it's storable. And I think the governance is emergent in a very useful and rigorous way in agents that those of us that have been struggling with the explainability problem would not have necessarily expected. And I think that's, at least for my part, what's interesting there is it's really the blend between the ability to define an orchestration of language models to build an agent, and then the agents, the language models themselves. And it is these tools we've worked on for now, whatever, 30 years in the automation and orchestration world now become incredibly useful in the agent world. This integration, orchestration, and management of these endpoints really that are the agents is a perfect fit for managing this and providing the transparency and explainability. So it's really exciting. I'd sort of pivoting from governance and theory and how we're seeing that emerge. What are the most exciting areas where you're starting to see AI agents having an impact, in the world today? Do you have any, even at an industry macro level or your regional macro level, sort of what you see is kind of hot in terms of where impact is happening? I know I spend a lot more time down in the weeds than you do because you're looking at the macro, but what are you seeing from a macro perspective of where things are really starting to take off from a value delivery perspective?
Yes, as you said, Jeremiah, you need to definitely share your thoughts after me. But I'll just share what I'm seeing right now and what are the conversations around the usage of AI agents. Um, as I mentioned, like when something goes wrong, it would go very wrong with some of these, um, I guess, use cases. So, I guess the low hanging fruits that people are trying to tackle are the ones that are more forgiving, and also they're the ones that um, LLMs are helping a lot in solving the problem, which is conversational, more reliant on the language. For example, the marketing aspects, marketing departments are actually leveraging AI agents right now, and I'm hearing and seeing a lot of use cases to deliver better, high quality campaigns and like better content and sort of generating and managing those decisions very effectively and quickly. At the same time, I'm hearing a lot of businesses are leveraging agents in finding leads and sales leads. It is again highly reliant on what LLMs are meant to be the hero of. Right. And again, lots of exploration in terms of trying to understand uh, how they can leverage agents the best in different departments. Like healthcare is the one that is exploring it a lot because of the value that it can provide. But then at the same time, there are very cautious about the full autonomy, and finance is also one of the major one that I've seen a lot of really good use cases. As you know, AI has been used in finance a lot, and probably one of the most mature use cases you would see, like in identifying fraudulent activities and sort of uh, maybe dynamic, um, uh, trading and things like that. But yeah, would love to hear your thoughts and what are you seeing?
I think what excites me is that I'm starting to see emergent within our exploration and implementation base almost every single one of the highest value when we do a case study, the really high value implementations are greenfield use cases. So this is not use cases where it's basically using AI to redefine a standard workflow, like order to cash, or lead to opportunity conversion, or supplier availability check, or anything like that. What we're starting to see is that there's almost a if we've focused on a domain this large in enterprise SaaS for the last 30, 40 years in enterprise software, the domain of possibility has grown by, I don't know, orders of magnitude. Maybe it's 10x, maybe it's 100x, I don't know. But the business processes that we see people applying AI agents in are not well defined, they're not well understood, but they share a common characteristic. And that common characteristic is that it is a repeatable process, but it's a repeatable process that required a tremendous amount of contextual information, multiple systems or elements of information from the enterprise, and required a human to analyze and deal with it, because you're dealing with often long form information and structured information simultaneously. So you mentioned finance, for example. I'm going to go to back office finance, like the office of the CFO. We're seeing a tremendous rise in reconciliation processes. So reconciliation processes where typically you would need a senior finance professional to compare maybe order form or contractual data with system data to make sure that they match up, or to identify special terms, special contractual terms, and then forecast the potential impact. There's entire industries where the industry takes a contractual framework, codifies it into a series of processes that humans then rigorously manage with spreadsheets and emails and communication. Millions and millions of dollars spent on individual enterprises of just managing those frameworks, whether it's in finance or healthcare or other environments. And now we have the ability, and we're seeing it happen, that people are actually automating these processes where you have to be able to accurately understand a complex legal artifact like a contract or a master service agreement, and then you have to judge performance against that on the basis of structured business data. Highly repeatable process, requires expertise and contextual knowledge, but was not automatable until now. And now it's a greenfield automatable thing. You mentioned banking and fraud detection. Um, we're seeing now banks start to layer natural language processing and large language models on top of and in a ensemble with the discriminatory or outlier detection models that they were using for fraud to be able to explain what's happening with the fraud so that the caseworker can make a determination much more quickly. Also, generation of compliance reports from know your customer or fraud detection, money laundering, that has been a very human intensive activity. And so there are all of this just incredible world out there of processes that were never automatable. They're not defined, they're not written down, they're not documented. And it reminds me of the beginning of my career in the early 2000s of the BPA or business process automation work when we first were really implementing ERP at scale from mainframe to ERP conversion when you're seeing a three-tier architecture and you now have this huge extension into the workforce of being able to supply enterprise computing via local GUIs or even browsers. So I think it's really interesting to see we have this natural incremental fit, sales and marketing, but now where I see just a complete step change in value is the digital labor aspect in high context, cognitively challenging or typically required a human to synthesize information from structured and unstructured world into a business process. And that I think, at least from my perception, that's where there's just incredible value because I mentioned the closing process. That's actually a SnapLogic use case. We were able to shorten our monthly close by an entire day, and we were able to take 95% of the dwell time out of the reconciliation workflows, where we were reconciling our contracts, our customer order forms with the actual system itself. And I can tell you, every company I go to that works, on a ratable or a subscription basis has the same problem. So I just imagine, wow, if there's one day at a little, company like SnapLogic, how many person years are being wasted on this that could be unlocked to do to new things? And that's just one tiny slice of what is a very huge potential surface. Like, what are the biggest challenges you're seeing when people look at those big problems and they say, look, we're all in. We want to be AI first. We believe in digital labor and agentic, and an agentic enterprise future. What do you see as the biggest challenges that people are facing, and how are they overcoming?
I mean, the challenges are pretty much aligned with the challenges that we have seen when they were trying to leverage AI itself. So it is interesting that now we are talking about AI agents, but when I was in a conference not long ago, where the 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 discussion was more around the basics of um, having a unified data strategy, a unified data model, and it just shows that a lot of companies are still going through the maturity level to get to the point that they can leverage actually the agents and the AI itself. So that's still one of the biggest challenges that companies are seeing. I have seen and heard that sometimes the executives are not aware that the agents are still AI and they still need data and they still are reliant on some of uh, the foundations that needs to be there in order to work properly. Um, and one other major challenge is around privacy and security as always. Like everybody's excited about it, but then at the same time, they're all very cautious. And as they have more of a complex sort of a scenario that might, you know, go wrong, they would be much more slower in terms of even trying it in a smaller setting. So we're the actual solution is pretty I guess straightforward. Like all the companies at this point should make sure that they go a dual approach, focusing on the foundation, make sure that they have the right data in the right format, they have the governance, they have all the steps that are needed in order to be successful as a sort of digital organization. But at the same time, they can't wait until they have everything in a perfect setting. So they need to carve out slices through their tech stack, through their sort of business uh, uh, functions to deliver as a project and to try to understand more and then to expand. As I said, the most value that companies are getting are the ones that are tackling the bigger problems, not low hanging fruit, but it's still it is very wise to start with an MVP as a sort of a company strategy to understand, to learn a lot from the experience.
No, that's fascinating you say that. I saw a recent survey that was published in Axios that showed a 30% gap between the perception of AI readiness between executives and the individual contributors in companies. The executives were 30% more optimistic and confident about the ability to deliver than the folks on the ground. And I think you exactly nail it that there can be a lack of awareness on how much foundational work needs to be done in order to make the AI ready. So I think that your recommendation is for our C-suite leaders, our senior leaders, to make sure that you're listening to the individual contributors, understand what the prerequisites are for AI success, and make sure that that strategy and funding is in place, but also start early with the exploratory work, with the experimentation and iteration and implementation while simultaneously those foundational investments are going, because the level of urgency is high that if the fast will win effectively, right? So the people that are jumping in, becoming AI first, ensuring those foundational investments are in place, and then are also beginning to build to experiment will be the ones who will reap the greater share of the rewards. That's what I'm hearing from
100%. Yeah, I couldn't make it. I couldn't share it better than how you summarized it. I have I have a sort of a blessing to be able to travel, talk to different companies, different nations, and try. I always try to observe how um, the the culture, the digital culture, and the sort of how risk averse are these companies, and also in some places like countries. And I've seen that like there are countries that specifically that are in the forefront of technology, and they make more startups. They are more, I guess, aggressive in terms of winning. They are the ones that um, believe that the speed is very important, and they need to um, make it, break it, learn from it, and win. And there are certain countries and companies that are a little bit more slower in terms of adoption, and they believe that they need to be more cautious and they need to watch and learn. And um, I think just the history shows that always the ones that are more open to explore would have higher advantage to it.
Yeah, I love that. Make it, break it, learn from it, and win. I think that I need that on a t-shirt. Well, I mean, it's been wonderful speaking with you. Yeah, it's always a pleasure and an exciting conversation. I guess just to wrap it up, I would ask you like, what is your biggest prediction for the future of AI agents, agentic AI, and what are you most excited to see?
I mean, this is something that is really, really difficult to predict. To be very honest with you, everything is moving so fast that um, new opportunities, new ideas, new tools coming from every direction. But what I'm seeing in general, which might look very obvious right now, it, we can see that very soon we are going to have embodied AI more mainstream. It's sort of an agent in the physical world. If you think about it, AI agents are the ones that we are talking about are mostly ready um, to actually operate in the digital world. So that's why, like you would see, OpenAI and other companies are kind of showcasing their operators that are able to work within your computer ecosystem, playing with your browser, and doing some tasks. And then you would see in the real world the embodied AI, the robots that are going to do the agentic sort of work on your behalf pretty soon. I mean, we're already seeing these autonomous vehicles, but it definitely needs a lot more sophistication to see, robots at home taking care of some of the chores and doing it properly. At the same time, it needs a lot of new advances that right now is being pushed by companies and universities in terms of uh, the research, like for AI to understand the physical world. That's what is missing as one of the biggest leap forward, which I believe in 2 years, we're going to see huge advances in that front as well. And hopefully that would open up new doors. Like these agents are then able to be more useful and more, uh, I guess, in terms of functionality, being more available in the physical world as well.
That's an exciting future, and there you go. I hope to continue the conversation, and we'll watch that evolve. I think the possibility for a world of sustainable abundance, where we're able to create a much more livable and high productivity and sustainable high quality of life across the world. I think is in our grasp, and it's incredibly exciting, and it's exciting that it's a near term growth and business opportunity for teams and business individuals, but it's also, I think, a global opportunity, for us all to make the world a better place. So thank you so much, Steve. It's wonderful to get a piece of your time as you're, traveling throughout the world. And I'm excited about our collaboration in GenAI that works and helping the community and seeing this global groundswell of creative, passionate, hardworking folks, really, really contribute and deliver. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jeremiah, and thank you, SnapLogic team. I'm following also some of the new products and projects closely. Best of luck, and looking forward to seeing you in person.
Absolutely fantastic.